On a flying ship high above the mountains, the guards are in a full-blown panic, shouting that their captive has escaped. Meanwhile, the elf girl herself is trying to stay hidden, her heart pounding as she listens to the search party getting closer. Her cover is blown almost immediately and she bolts down a corridor with a guard shouting right behind her. But it is no use, she is completely cornered and looks absolutely terrified. Her captors close in, smugly reminding her there is no escape from a flying ship, a pretty solid point honestly. This scarred leader of the group screams that she is going to pay dearly for this little stunt. As he reaches for her, the sheer terror on her face says everything about what is about to happen. Instead of surrendering, she makes the ultimate gamble and just yeets herself over the railing, shocking everyone. While plummeting to her certain doom, her expression is not fear but a strange kind of peace. She tumbles through the air, shackles and all, falling towards the unforgiving ground below. Her destination is the jagged, snow-capped peaks of a massive mountain range. Deep within those same mountains, there is a dark cave that looks like the entrance to a mine. Inside, it is a bustling operation, with workers chipping away at the rock and hauling carts of ore. One of the miners, a young guy, swings his pickaxe with surprising force, shattering the stone wall. He steps forward over the freshly broken ground, clearly used to this kind of hard labor. Looking over his haul, he seems pretty satisfied with the day's work, thinking he has gathered a decent amount. With a content smile, he rests his pickaxe on his shoulder as someone calls out his name, Claude. Claude turns to see an older miner, probably the foreman, telling him it is about time for a break. This foreman is completely floored, asking if Claude really dug up that entire massive pile all by himself. Laughing, the old man just shakes his head, commenting that our boy Claude is as absurdly hardworking as ever. Claude just shrugs off the praise, saying it is all thanks to his master's teachings, which is a pretty humble take. He has got this super genuine smile, telling the old man he is just grateful for everything he has done for him. Turns out he was an orphan, and he says he'd probably be dead if the foreman had not taken him in. This foreman gets all flustered, telling him he is laying it on a bit thick, clearly not a guy who handles compliments well. But our boy Claude is just happy to be useful, saying even helping a little bit makes him glad. Putting an arm around him, the foreman admits that thanks to Claude, their mining output is up 100-fold. Claude just laughs, completely brushing it off and assuming the old man is just pulling his leg. As they push a cart out of the mine, the foreman insists he is dead serious, saying Claude is either too modest or clueless. They emerge from the dark cave into the bright, open mountain air, a windmill turning in the distance. Outside, the other miners give them a friendly wave, calling out to both the foreman and our boy Claude. They exchange a quick good work with the crew, just another normal day at the mine winding down. This other guys start joking around, telling Claude they are counting on his crazy strength for the afternoon shift. With that, the whole crew starts heading off for a well-deserved lunch break, their village visible down the path. But then Claude just stops dead in his tracks, looking up at the sky with a confused expression. He spots something tiny falling from way up high, a dark speck against the blinding sun. Shielding his eyes to get a better look, his expression shifts from curiosity to absolute shock, because he is starting to realize that falling speck is not a rock or a bird at all. It is a person, no, it is a girl, the same elf from the airship, tumbling head over heels through the sky. He immediately starts screaming for the foreman and the others, pointing frantically at the impossible sight. But the rest of the crew just looks at him like he has lost his mind, saying they cannot see a single thing. Claude is practically begging them, asking how they cannot possibly see what he is seeing. With zero hesitation, he just bolts, sprinting towards the impossible sight in the sky. He shouts back a quick apology, promising to explain everything later as his crew yells his name. This foreman is left completely stunned, just trying to process what the hell just happened. And Claude's takeoff is so powerful it literally cracks the ground under his feet. His coworkers just stare after him, commenting that his strength is as ridiculous as ever. Snapping out of his shock, the foreman tells the other guys to go on ahead without him. He decides he has to follow, telling them to eat first because something is clearly very wrong. But the other miners are a loyal bunch, insisting they are going with him to help out. This old man just lets out a gruff laugh, clearly touched by their camaraderie. Meanwhile, our boy is still sprinting, his mind just stuck on the question of why a girl is falling from the sky. Each one of his steps lands with enough force to shatter stone, a casual display of his power. He pushes himself to the absolute limit, a look of intense focus on his face. This kid is moving so fast he is just a blur, desperately trying to make it in time. Up ahead, he spots the target landing zone, a massive, jagged cliff face. So naturally, instead of climbing it, he just launches himself off the ground like a rocket. Flying through the air, he reaches out with everything he has, screaming that he has to make it. And against all odds, he actually does it, catching the elf girl right out of her freefall. His landing is more of a controlled impact, slamming into the side of the mountain with her in his arms. Digging his heels in, he starts grinding down the sheer rock face, trying to slow their descent. With a shaky breath of relief, Claude mutters that somehow that actually worked. They slide the rest of the way down the cliff, him calmly noting that they are okay now that they have landed. After sticking the landing, he sits with the elf girl in his lap as she finally starts to stir. He immediately asks if she is all right and if she can tell him her name, ever the gentleman. Barely conscious, she just manages to whisper out a single name, Shin. But that is all she has left in the tank, and she promptly passes out cold in his arms. Carrying her, Claude quickly checks for injuries and realizes from her features that she is a dark elf. From way up on the cliff, the foreman and the rest of the crew are shouting down, asking if he is okay. Claude just yells back that he is fine, but that he has got a bit of a situation with the girl. This foreman, looking like he is aged 10 years and 10 seconds, tells him to stay put while they get gear. Turning to the others, he orders them to get ready to haul the two of them back up. His crew, loyal to a fault, gives a resounding yeah, completely ready to help their insane friend. Down below, Claude just stares at the unconscious Shin, wondering who in the world she is. He thinks to himself that this is how their story begins. A pretty dramatic start to any relationship, honestly. Later, they have brought her to a room where a new old man examines her and declares she is not a slave. This wise-looking elder, complete with a magnificent braided beard, tells Claude to take a closer look. He points directly to the heavy metal collar around her neck, explaining that it is a slave's brand. But crucially, he says she has not actually been contracted to a master yet. This lack of a contract mark on the collar means only one thing: she was on her way to be sold. Claude is blown away by his knowledge, but the old man just chuckles, saying you learn a lot when you are old. Claude asks the old man just how old he is, joking that he has looked exactly the same since he was a kid. This elder confirms Shin has no major injuries, declaring she is surprisingly healthy for someone who just fell out of the sky. Just as he finishes his diagnosis, he points out that their patient is finally starting to wake up. Shin sits up slowly, her hand instinctively going to the heavy collar around her neck, looking absolutely miserable. Her eyes dart around the unfamiliar room as she tries to piece together where she could possibly be. Seeing the two men, her first thought is that she has been captured again, which is a pretty fair assumption at this point. But Claude just gives her a huge, friendly smile, wishing her a good morning and saying he is glad she is safe. Still wary, she kneels on the floor and cautiously asks him who he is. He introduces himself with that same easygoing smile, telling her his name is Claude. She repeats his name with a respectful sama honorific, a flicker of something in her eyes. Claude then gestures to the old man, explaining that everyone just calls him Gramps. Gramps cheerfully introduces himself as a healer who specializes in treating slaves, a very specific, slightly concerning resume. Our boy then gently confirms her name, asking if Shin is correct from what she whispered before. With a slight nod, she quietly confirms that her name is indeed Shin. Claude welcomes her warmly, and she just timidly agrees, still completely overwhelmed by the whole situation. Looking around again, she finally musters the courage to ask where exactly this place is. This old man explains they are in a mining town and that Claude is the one who saved her after she fell from the sky. Claude just scratches his head, playing it off like he just happened to look up at the right second. Gramps immediately gives him a deadpan look, pointing out that catching a falling person is not a normal reaction for anyone. Hearing this, Shin stares at Claude with wide eyes, the reality of what he did finally starting to sink in. With a deep bow, Shin thanks him, calling him the person who saved her very life. She then drops into a full-on prostration, which makes Claude completely panic and beg her to stop. Still a little flustered, he tries to ask about her, using the formal san with her name, but she just beams at him, insisting he drop the honorifics and just call her Shin. Claude agrees, and she seems genuinely happy about this simple act of familiarity. His face turns serious, though, as he gets back to the elephant in the room. Claude gently asks her why she was falling from the sky, adding that she does not have to say if she does not want to. Her gaze drops to her shackled hands, a clear sign of how difficult this is for her. Taking a breath, she admits that she jumped from a slave trader's airship on purpose. This blunt confession leaves Claude completely stunned, just trying to process that reality. She explains that as a dark elf, she'd rather die than be sold into that kind of life. Gramps then explains that dark elves are seen as bad omens in many places, which is just awful. Our boy is impressed by Gramps' knowledge, who immediately just calls him a moron. He clarifies that it is not about him being smart, it is about Claude being an absolute clueless wonder. Claude, completely unfazed, just gives Shin a warm smile and says she can stay and rest. But Gramps immediately starts to object, looking like he is about to shut the whole thing down. Claude just points out that she has nowhere else to go, asking what the big deal is. This kid looks genuinely confused, asking why helping her would ever be a problem. Meanwhile, Shin just watches the exchange, her entire future hanging in the balance. Finally, Gramps sighs and says he is for it, guessing the other miners will not complain either. Gramps brings up the logistical nightmare. Every single room in the dorms is already taken. This leaves Claude completely stumped, trying to figure out a proper solution for Shin. After a moment, he gets a brilliant idea, offering up his own room for her to use instead. Shin immediately freaks out, insisting that as a slave, she could never take her master's room, a hard no. Her firm refusal leaves Claude scratching his head, realizing the social dynamics here are a bit complicated. Gramps, ever the chaos agent, just suggests they share the room, which makes Claude sputter in protest. But Shin, ever the dutiful one, says she is perfectly fine with it as long as Claude is. With no other options, Claude reluctantly agrees, deciding he will just have to explain this mess to everyone later. He gently takes her hand, a simple gesture to show they are in this together now. Looking up at him with total trust, she agrees to the arrangement, a blush creeping onto her face. As they walk off, the foreman and the other miners just watch them go, probably wondering what the hell is happening. Claude then explains the whole wild story to the foreman, with Shin bowing deeply beside him. Of course, one of his buddies immediately starts teasing him about bringing home a pretty girl, making him blush. Shin just smiles happily at him, completely unbothered by the friendly ribbing. They make their way through the quiet mining village, heading towards his place. With a key in hand, Claude gets ready to open the door to his room. Inside, he apologizes for how small and cramped his room is, ever the humble guy. But she is just amazed, telling him it is not small at all, it is absolutely wonderful. He tells her she can use half the shelf space, trying to make her feel at home. Then our boy suggests she take a shower while he finds her some clean clothes to wear. Shin gives him a shy thank you, a little blush creeping onto her face. Claude just smiles back, telling her to take her time and use the shower as she likes. He returns with some clothes he borrowed, wondering out loud if they are even the right size for her. With the fresh clothes in hand, he reaches for the doorknob to his room. But our boy freezes, a sudden, horrible realization hitting him a second too late. He opens the door to find her wrapped in a towel and immediately shouts an apology. This kid is completely flustered, having walked in at the absolute worst possible moment. Still shackled, she just asks what is wrong, totally oblivious to his internal meltdown. Shin then explains that while she is untrained, she will do her best for him. Oh no, this is a misunderstanding of epic proportions. And then she drops the towel, offering herself to him as Claude's soul visibly exits his body. His brain is just screaming, "What are you doing?" As he tries to process this sudden turn of events. She earnestly explains that she is dedicating her body to him, which is not helping his panic attack one bit. Claude just manages to sputter out a single desperate question. Why? Because she is a slave, she says, and this is the only way she knows how to repay his kindness. She even thought he wanted this since he told her to shower, a catastrophic yet sadly logical miscommunication. Frantically, Claude tries to clear the air, insisting he just thought she was dirty and had zero other intentions. This leaves Shin completely confused, her previous resolve just melting away into uncertainty. So now they are just standing there in the most awkward standoff in history, with him trying to find the right words. He finally just begs her to please get dressed first, and she apologizes, completely flustered. A few moments later, she is all changed into the new clothes, looking much more comfortable and a lot less naked. After the absolute chaos of that misunderstanding, a quiet moment finally settles in the room. He breaks the silence, cheerfully noting the clothes are a bit big but should be fine. Shin immediately apologizes for the whole situation, but Claude insists it was his fault for barging in. The slightly flustered smile, he just declares them even desperate to put the incident behind them. But Shin's expression turns serious as she has one very important question she needs to ask. She looks him dead in the eye, wanting to know why he is being so incredibly kind to her. Claude just gives her this pure, simple smile, saying it is only natural to help someone who is in trouble. And that answer just completely short-circuits her brain. She has never met anyone like him before. This guy explains that plenty of people have helped him out before, so he is just paying it forward. Looking right at her, he says this time the person who needed help just happened to be her, no other reason needed. Shin is completely floored by this, just staring at him with total adoration as she whispers his name. Our boy, a master of social cues, just asks if something's wrong, completely oblivious to the moment. She quickly denies it, still flustered and trying to process his unbelievable level of decency. With a shy smile, she tells him he is a very strange person, which is the highest compliment she can give right now. Claude, meanwhile, is just sweating bullets, having absolutely no idea what that is supposed to mean. Elsewhere, word is already spreading, with someone asking if it is true Claude brought home a slave. This foreman just slams the table, absolutely fuming with jealousy over Claude's insane luck, the classic bro response. Soon enough, Shin is already helping out around the place, serving drinks to the other miners. She's even cooking for them, whipping up a seriously delicious-looking breakfast for the entire crew. Naturally, the guys are loving it, praising her food while one immediately tries to ask her out. The lead pushes forward as the conflict keeps escalating. Tension builds as the stakes grow higher. The moment shifts and the balance tips. Something changes in the air between them. The scene holds, then moves on. Conflict simmers beneath the surface. He holds his ground as the situation unfolds. She takes a step and the dynamic shifts. The next beat of the story lands. The pressure rises as the dangerous clash keeps escalating. The lead pushes forward as the conflict keeps escalating. Tension builds as the stakes grow higher. The moment shifts and the balance tips. Something changes in the air between them. The scene holds, then moves on. Conflict simmers beneath the surface. He holds his ground as the situation unfolds. She takes a step and the dynamic shifts. The next beat of the story lands. The pressure rises as the dangerous clash keeps escalating. The lead pushes forward as the conflict keeps escalating. Tension builds as the stakes grow higher. The moment shifts and the balance tips. Something changes in the air between them. The scene holds, then moves on. Conflict simmers beneath the surface. He holds his ground as the situation unfolds. She takes a step and the dynamic shifts. The next beat of the story lands. The pressure rises as the dangerous clash keeps escalating. The lead pushes forward as the conflict keeps escalating. Tension builds as the stakes grow higher. The moment shifts and the balance tips. Something changes in the air between them. The scene holds, then moves on. Conflict simmers beneath the surface. He holds his ground as the situation unfolds. She takes a step and the dynamic shifts. The next beat of the story lands. The pressure rises as the dangerous clash keeps escalating. The lead pushes forward as the conflict keeps escalating. Tension builds as the stakes grow higher. The moment shifts and the balance tips. Something changes in the air between them. The scene holds, then moves on. Conflict simmers beneath the surface. He holds his ground as the situation unfolds. She takes a step and the dynamic shifts. The next beat of the story lands. The pressure rises as the dangerous clash keeps escalating. The lead pushes forward as the conflict keeps escalating. Tension builds as the stakes grow higher. The moment shifts and the balance tips. Something changes in the air between them. The scene holds, then moves on. Conflict simmers beneath the surface. He holds his ground as the situation unfolds. She takes a step and the dynamic shifts. The next beat of the story lands. The pressure rises as the dangerous clash keeps escalating. Claude calmly tells her it is dangerous inside, suggesting they should probably step out. Right on cue, someone starts screaming from a window, basically telling them to get lost. A worried Shin immediately asks if he is okay after that charming welcome. He just plays it off with a strained smile, insisting this kind of thing is totally normal. Sure it is, buddy. Once outside, she tells him he has absolutely nothing to apologize for, and with a soft smile, she admits that being with him reminds her of her family back home. Claude hesitates for a moment, trying to find the right words to ask her something important. He finally just asks if she'd be willing to tell him a little about her hometown. Her expression softens as she begins, describing it as an incredibly beautiful place. We get a flashback to a pristine forest with a crystal-clear stream. Her home is a vibrant, idyllic land with flowers, mountains, and even a unicorn-like creature just chilling. She recalls the changing of the seasons, from the red leaves of autumn to the deep snows of winter. With a wistful look, she concludes there is no other place in the world quite as wonderful. Her story leaves Claude completely speechless, just staring at her as he whispers her name. In that moment, a new resolve hardens on his face as he makes a decision. Turning back to her, she just asks what he was about to say, completely unaware of the shift. And with a hero's smile, Claude declares that he is going to take her back home himself. Shin is just completely floored, her brain short-circuiting at his impossible promise. She starts to stammer, trying to explain that something like that is just not possible. But he cuts her off, admitting he is not all-powerful, but he is determined to help her no matter what. Shin just whispers his name, completely overwhelmed by his impossible promise to take her home. Claude, ever the master of social cues, asks if he is being a bother. Seriously, my guy, read the room. She quickly denies it, insisting that is not it at all, still flustered by his sheer decency. A single tear escapes, a testament to how deeply his words have moved her. Through it all, she gives him this radiant, hopeful smile, saying she is truly looking forward to it. She still worries he is pushing himself too hard, but he insists a man has to keep his word. With a confident grin, he doubles down, declaring it is a promise between them now. And Shin, completely won over, can only manage a soft, heartfelt yes in response. They share a quiet moment, hands clasped, as they agree it is probably time to head back inside. Back in the mess hall, the foreman greets them, but the friendly atmosphere is about to shatter. Suddenly, the foreman is screaming in pure panic, telling Claude and Shin to run for their lives. Two very unpleasant-looking guys have appeared, and the leader greets Shin by name with a nasty grin. Her face drains of all color as the man sneers that he has finally found her. This lead thug declares her time on the run is over, telling his partner to go and retrieve her. These two goons step forward, completely blocking the exit and cornering our heroes. Shin is frozen in absolute terror, her past catching up to her in the worst way imaginable. But a defiant voice cuts through the tension, declaring he will not let them have her. This foreman and the other miners suddenly move, forming a human wall to protect Claude and Shin. He yells for Claude to take Shin and escape while they hold the line, a real bro move. This whole crew stands united, warning the thugs not to underestimate a bunch of hardworking miners. Claude screams at Shin to run, trying to get her to safety while he still can. But she grabs his hand, refusing to leave and asking why he'd even suggest it. With a look of total despair, she explains these guys are bodyguards for some seriously nasty slave traders. She even mentions a story where these two thugs took down 100 people by themselves, so yeah, they are screwed. Panicked, Shin realizes the foreman and the other miners are now in mortal danger because of her. Meanwhile, the brawl is a total mess as the miners try to hold the line, yelling for everyone to get out. This lead thug is absolutely livid, screaming at the small fry for daring to get in his way. His partner echoes the sentiment, telling the miners to just disappear while being held back. And with zero effort, he sends the miners flying, so much for that human wall. This main goon cracks a nasty grin, promising to beat every last one of them into the ground. He follows through immediately, landing a brutal punch right on the foreman's face. This impact sends the foreman and another miner sprawling across the floor, completely overpowered. Standing over their handiwork, the thugs just tell the defeated miners to stay down like the trash they are. This foreman, bruised and battered, struggles to his feet, admitting these guys are way too tough. Shin cannot take it anymore, pleading with them to stop, saying it is all her fault. At that moment, Claude's hand clenches into a fist as he tells her to get back. He declares he is joining the fight because there is no way he is abandoning his friends. Desperate, Shin grabs his arm, begging him not to, insisting it is impossible for him to win. Claude just turns to her with a disarmingly calm smile, telling her everything's going to be okay. Facing the thugs again, he says he has been training for this, and more than anything, he is here to protect her. This thugs just laugh, asking what a scrawny kid like Claude thinks he can possibly do against them. One of the goons gets right in his face, promising to make him regret it. Real top-tier villain banter there. Meanwhile, the lead thug decides he will just go collection while his buddy handles the warm-up act. But the miners, absolute legends, jump back in to form another human wall, yelling at him not to touch her. This guy is completely out of patience now, his face twisting in rage as he screams at them to shut up. Shin desperately yells for everyone to stop, knowing full well this is a fight they cannot possibly win. And yeah, she is right, the thug swats the miners away like they are nothing, complaining they are no challenge at all. He looms over the defeated foreman, telling the small fry to just stay down and die already. Watching this unfold, Shin grits her teeth, whispering that she is not going to let this happen. In a surprising move, she takes a decisive step forward, entering the fray herself. She lands a swift kick to the back of the thug's knee, which at least gets his attention. This guy barely even flinches, turning around and asking if that little tap was supposed to actually hurt him. He is absolutely livid that a slave would dare to kick him as Shin recoils in terror. With a furious roar, he grabs her and brutally slams her down onto a nearby table. Shin cries out in pain, completely overpowered and at his mercy now. That is the final straw for Claude, who steps in and declares he is the one the thug should be fighting. With pure fury in his eyes, he screams that he will never ever hand Shin over to them. This thug just grabs our boy by the collar, telling the annoying brat to get lost. He winds up for a massive punch, yelling that he is going to smash his stupid face in, but the punch lands and nothing. Claude somehow blocks it and both of them look completely stunned by the outcome. Claude hits him with the ultimate flex, pointing out that his brother's already been taken care of. This thug turns around, completely stunned to see his partner is in fact already down for the count. This lead goon is just screaming in pure disbelief, his brain refusing to process what just happened. He absolutely loses it, yelling that his punch can shatter rocks and demanding to know why Claude is still standing. But our boy's hand is still there, holding the line against a punch that should have ended him right then and there. With a fresh bruise on his face, Claude declares that anyone who makes Shin cry is his enemy, and then he just unloads a massive punch right into the thug's gut full force. This hit sends the mountain of a man flying backward, crashing clean through the room. Shin and the miners can only stare, their jaws on the floor at this insane display of power. He just keeps flying across the mess hall, a total ragdoll in the face of whatever Claude just unleashed. This impact is absolutely brutal, cracking the wall as he finally comes to a very sudden stop. And he is out, eyes rolled back, completely unconscious from that one devastating hit. Our boy is left standing, panting from the effort but very much the last one standing. Meanwhile, the lead thug is just coming to, completely dazed and confused about what just went down. He is literally asking if he fainted, trying to piece together the last few moments of his failed career. His partner can only point toward Claude, realizing his brother just got one-shotted by this kid. This foreman, getting helped up, feels ashamed that an adult like him had to rely on a teenager to save them. But the other miners are just hyped, saying they finally got to see a blacksmith's true power in action. This foreman corrects them, insisting this is not some generic blacksmith power, this is all Claude. Now the remaining thug faces the miners, demanding to know just who the hell this kid is. This last thug standing is just screaming, demanding to know how some kid has that much raw power. With a grim look, the foreman simply states that Claude is a blacksmith. This goon absolutely refuses to believe a mere blacksmith could send his brother flying across the room, total denial. But the miners just smirk, with the foreman clarifying they never said he was just asterisk a blacksmith. Standing tall, Claude is revealed to be their youngest ace and the strongest blacksmith they have ever had. Still, the thug cannot accept it, just yelling that it is impossible for some brat to be this strong. Claude cuts through the noise, warning him that if he wants another round, he will crush him for real next time. And just like that, the tough guy is on the floor, whimpering in absolute terror, so much for all that talk. Shin just watches him, whispering his name with a mix of awe and relief. Her eyes are filled with tears, completely overwhelmed by the fact he just saved everyone. Turning to her, Claude calls her name, his own face bruised but full of concern. He asks if she is okay, but she just throws the question right back at him, pointing out he is the one who fought. She admits she had absolutely no idea he was hiding that kind of strength. With a soft smile, Shin says that a lot of things are starting to make sense now. Our boy is completely lost, asking what she means by that social cues are not his strong suit. He just grins through the pain, saying he is glad the thugs were weaker than he thought they'd be. This comment makes the last thug absolutely lose his mind in the background while everyone else just stares. Shin gently dabs his bruised cheek with a cloth, a quiet moment after the chaos. But in the shadows, a voice admits to being quite surprised by the whole display. And a sharply dressed man with a monocle steps in, politely announcing his intrusion. Yeah, this is the final boss. And just when you think it is over, a new challenger enters the ring, a fancy man in a top hat oozing pure evil. Claude's face just drops, realizing the victory party is officially cancelled. Shin looks like she's seen a ghost because her actual worst nightmare just walked through the door. This new guy comments on the mess, basically calling his own goons more useless than he'd imagined. Great performance review. This last thug standing is practically groveling, calling him boss and trying to stammer out an excuse for getting his butt kicked. But the boss just screams at him to shut up, clearly not interested in hearing about his employees' failures. His underling immediately clams up, sweating profusely because he knows he is in deep, deep trouble now. Turning to our heroes, the boss apologizes for the unseemly display like he is at a tea party and not a brawl. He introduces himself as a crow agros, a slave trader with all the politeness of a demonic butler. Claude, still bruised, steps up and introduces himself as Shin's husband, a hell of a power move. Akroa just tips his hat, looking completely unfazed and maybe even a little amused by the kid's guts. He then compliments Claude on being both strong and well-mannered, which is villain for you are a cute little obstacle. Our boy cuts right to the chase, asking him what the hell he wants here. Akroa explains that Shin is his property and he is just here to collect her after she conveniently went missing. Not having any of it, Claude shields Shin, refusing to hand her over to anyone who calls her a thing. This slaver then hits him with the legal jargon, asking if he is aware that by law she actually is his. Claude is completely floored, realizing he cannot just punch his way out of this one. Akroa smiles, loving that Claude seems to understand because he just adores a reasonable conversation, the absolute nerve. But our boy's hand clenches into a fist, showing he is not about to roll over just because of some paperwork. With the pleasantries over, Akroa points and demands they hand her over, claiming he is her rightful owner. Claude is just seething, completely silent as Shin hides behind him. With tears in her eyes, she whispers his name, clearly terrified for him. She thanks him for everything he has done for her, sounding like she has already given up. Our boy whips around, absolutely stunned and demanding to know what she means. Shin just tells him not to worry, insisting she always knew this day would come. But Claude's face hardens, showing there is no way in hell he is accepting that. Turning to face her captor, she says her time with everyone was true happiness, and with a heartbreaking smile, she just says goodbye, ready to walk away. He reaches out desperately as she starts to leave, refusing to let this happen. Gritting his teeth, our boy is just radiating pure, stubborn refusal. In a flash, he grabs her arm, stopping her dead in her tracks. She turns back, completely surprised by his sudden move. Claude just tells her it is not happening, that he is absolutely not letting her go. Seeing an opportunity, Akroa names his price with a smug look, 1 million gold coins. He taunts them, saying that is her value and asking if a kid like him can possibly afford it. Still bruised, Claude just grins and says, "Deal, I will buy her," like he is ordering lunch. This slaver's monocle nearly pops out, his brain short-circuiting as he just stammers. "What?" Shin is equally floored, asking Claude what on earth he is talking about. He just tells her to hang on a second, turning to handle the transaction. And then he unveils a literal mountain of gold, asking if this covers it, the ultimate mic drop. Akroa is just frozen, staring at a literal dragon's hoard of gold as Claude casually tells him to wait while he counts it. This slaver picks up a coin, sweating bullets as he confirms it is real. His whole business plan just got flipped on its head. A low chuckle starts to build, the sound of a man's brain rebooting after a critical error. Then he just loses it, laughing hysterically that the kid actually called his bluff with a mountain of cash. Claude, completely over it, just asks if this means he will actually sell her now. With a greasy smile, Akroa confirms he absolutely will. Money is money, after all. He gives this whole self-righteous speech about being a merchant who serves his customers with sincerity. What a prince. To seal the deal, Shin has to prick her finger and apply blood to the contract collar, transferring ownership. This collar glows and Akroa declares that Claude is now officially her new master as tears well up in her eyes. And just like that, the transaction is complete. Shin is finally free from that monster. As he leaves, Akroa has the nerve to say he hopes they can do business again sometime, a true professional slimeball. Our boy just mutters that he'd rather not, which is the polite way of saying get lost forever. This foreman claps his hands, telling the miners the show's over and it is time to get back to work. He then gives Claude the day off, telling him he has got more important things to take care of. A true bro. Claude immediately bows, apologizing for all the trouble he has caused everyone. Shin is completely confused, asking why her new master is apologizing when she is the one he had to save. He just calls himself pathetic, clearly ashamed that buying her was the only way he could protect her. But she instantly shuts that down, insisting with all her heart that he was the one who rescued her. She thinks about the horrifying alternative, being sold to some other monster, a fate she cannot even bear to imagine. With a radiant, blushing smile, she tells him she is truly happy that he was the one to buy her. Claude tells her that her words of encouragement really helped, promising he will figure out this whole slavery mess. Shin is just a blushing, stammering mess, completely overwhelmed by his earnest declaration. Catching her reaction, our boy is completely lost, just wondering what is up with her. He literally asks her what is wrong, still bandaged up and clueless as ever about romance. As she starts apologizing for all the trouble, Claude just waves it off, insisting he only did what he wanted to do. This just makes her even more flustered, barely able to squeak out a response. With a confident grin, he announces that this means he can finally take her back to her hometown. Her face falls as she asks if he is really okay with this, having spent a fortune and upended his life for her. He just tells her it is fine, reminding her that he made a promise, did not he? Smiling through his bandages, he reaffirms his vow to see her safely back to her homeland. Overcome with emotion, Shin just breaks down in tears, thanking him over and over again. He gently calls her a crybaby, but she just insists that today is a very special occasion for tears. Now he says it is time to go explain this whole mess to his foster dad and the others. Finding the foreman, they both bow deeply, apologizing that they cannot properly repay his kindness before they go. Claude is just filled with guilt, feeling like he is letting everyone down by leaving so suddenly. With his head still bowed, he explains his firm decision to personally escort Shin back home. But the foreman just yells at them to get going already, a classic tough guy with a heart of gold move. This outburst catches Claude completely off guard, leaving him speechless for a moment. With his hands on his hips, the foreman proudly declares his son is setting off on a life-changing journey. He tells Claude he has to send him off with a smile, but reminds him to never forget he has a home to return to. With a teary-eyed shout, the foreman tells Claude this place will always be his home and he can return anytime. This rest of the miners cheer them on, telling them to do their best and not forget to bring back souvenirs. As they prepare to leave, he makes sure they have not forgotten anything for the long road ahead. Turns out Shin has a parting gift from the crew, a ribbon to match her outfit and wish them luck. She immediately ties it in her hair, striking a pose and asking our boy how it looks. And with that, Claude is all packed up and standing at the door, ready to finally begin their journey. This entire mining town gathers to see them off, waving and shouting their goodbyes from the hillside. One of the miners totally calls out the foreman for crying, even though he is trying to hide it. He immediately starts yelling at everyone to get back to work, a classic "I am not crying, you're crying" defense. Claude just blushes, muttering that he thinks it is perfectly fine for a man to show his emotions, but Shin just smiles knowingly, telling him it is a matter of a tough guy's pride. With their goodbyes finally said, they stand at the edge of the wilderness, ready to set off. Their path takes them through a dense, quiet forest as their real adventure begins. Claude points out they are getting close to the first city on their route, Fargrand, and he is pretty excited. Just then Shin hesitantly speaks up, clearly having something serious on her mind. She explains that because of her they have a problem that is a little difficult to bring up. And here is the reality check: they are basically broke and have no funds for this epic cross-country trip. Her eyes narrow with focus as she tells him she has a proposal to solve their money problem. Her grand idea is for them to register as adventurers to earn some cash along the way. Seeing his stunned silence, she immediately gets nervous, asking if he thinks it is a bad idea. Turns out Claude was thinking the exact same thing, grinning that her adventure plan is actually perfect. It is their only real option, letting them earn cash as they travel instead of just being broke tourists. Reaching a cliffside, he points into the distance, telling her they are finally making real progress toward her home. And boom, there it is, the massive walled city of Fargrand, their first official stop on this cross-country tour. With a determined look, Claude lays out the plan. First, they hit the city and register at the Adventurers Guild.